KSJE and the Farmington Public Library present Cuentos Hahne and Tales.
Hello, my name is Ray, and I'm a youth services technician at the Farmington Public Library. Today, I'm going to be reading several stories all about animal fairy tales. The first book I'm going to read is called Little Red Riding Duck, written by Charlotte Guillian, illustrated by Don Beacon. Once upon a time, a little duck lived with her mother in the woods. Her mother made her a red cloak for her, so everybody called her Little Red Riding Duck. One day, Little Red Riding Duck's mother gave her a basket of food to take to her grandma's house. Little Red Riding Duck was walking along the path when she met a wolf. "Where are you going with that basket of food?" he asked her. "Oh, I'm taking it to my grandma's house," said Little Red Riding Duck, who was a little scared. "Oh, you don't want to go that way," said the wolf. "I know a shortcut." But the wolf sent Little Red Riding Duck further into the woods. While Little Red Riding Duck was lost in the woods, the wolf ran ahead and knocked on Grandma's door. When the old duck opened the door, he bundled her into a cupboard. "I'll save you for pudding," the wolf said, licking his lips. Then the wolf put on Grandma's clothes and climbed into her bed. When Little Red Riding Duck got there, "I'll be waiting for her," he chuckled. Before long, Little Red Riding Duck knocked on the door and came in. When she saw the wolf in her grandma's bed, she gasped and said, "Oh, what big ears you have, Grandma!" The wolf replied, "All the better to hear you with, my dear." The Little Red Riding Duck said, "What big eyes you have, Grandma!" The wolf replied, "All the better to see you with, my dear." Finally, Little Red Riding Duck said, "What big teeth you have, Grandma!" The wolf jumped out of bed and replied, "All the better to eat you with." Little Red Riding Duck quacked loudly for help. A passing woodcutter heard quacks and came running to the rescue. The wolf took one look at the woodcutter's sharp axe and ran away as fast as his wolfly legs could carry him. Little Red Riding Duck, her grandma, and the woodcutter all sat down to enjoy tea together, and the wolf never bothered Little Red Riding Duck or her grandma ever again. The end. And that was called Little Red Riding Duck. The next book I'm going to read is called Panderella, written by Charlotte Guillian. Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful panda called Panderella. She lived with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters. They were very unkind and made her do all the work in her house. One day, a messenger brought an invitation from the royal palace. The prince had invited them all to a ball. But the stepsisters told Panderella she could not go. Panderella's stepmother and stepsisters got dressed up and went to the ball. When they had gone, Panderella sat down and she began to cry. Suddenly, there was a flash of light and her fairy godmother appeared. "Don't cry, Panderella," said the fairy godmother. "You shall go to the ball." She waved her magic wand, and suddenly Panderella was wearing a beautiful dress and a delicate glass slippers. The fairy godmother waved her wand again, and a carriage and horses appeared. They were ready to take Panderella to the ball. "Make sure you come home before the clock strikes midnight," she warned Panderella. When Panderella got to the ball, the prince couldn't take his eyes off her. They danced together for hours after hours. Suddenly, the clock struck midnight. The magic was about to wear off. Panderella ran as fast as she could, but as she ran, one of her glass slippers fell to the ground. The prince picked up the slippers. He didn't know who Panderella was, but he knew the slippers would fit her. He decided to search the land until he found her. Before long, the prince's search took him to Panderella's house. Her stepsisters tried to cram their paws into the slippers, but they were the wrong shape. Then the prince spotted Panderella and asked her to try the slippers on. It fit her perfectly. The prince and Panderella went to the palace where they were married. Panderella never had to work for her stepsisters again, and she lived happily ever after. The end. And that was called Panderella. The next book I'm going to read is called The Poodle and the Pea, written by Charlotte Guillian. Once upon a time, a king and queen lived in a fine palace. They had one son, Prince Barking. One day, the king and queen told Prince Barking it was time for him to get married. Many princesses came to the palace to meet the prince, but the prince didn't want to marry any of them. One night, a young princess was lost in the forest near their palace. She was cold, tired, and scared. At last, she stumbled out of the forest and saw the palace. She knocked on the door. A servant let her in and took her to the king and queen. She thanked them and told them she was a lost princess. The king and queen didn't believe anyone so dirty and bedraggled could be a princess, but the prince liked her. Then the servant had an idea. The servant put a pea in a bed and piled blankets on top of it. "Let her sleep in this basket tonight," he said. "In the morning we will know if she is truly a princess." The princess climbed to the top of the blankets. Then she curled up and she tried to sleep. When morning came, the princess hadn't slept at all. She complained that her bed had been lumpy. "Aha!" said the king. "Only a real princess could feel a pea under all those blankets." Prince Barking was delighted. He asked the princess to marry him, and at their wedding feast there were piles and piles of peas for everyone. And they lived happily ever after. The end. And that book was called The Poodle and the Pea. The next book I'm going to read is called Sleeping Badger. Once upon a time, a happy king and queen lived in a palace deep in the forest. Their happiness was complete when a baby princess was born. They named her Bella and held a big party to celebrate. The king and queen invited 3 magic butterflies to be their daughter's fairy godmother. Each godmother brought a special gift for Princess Bella. The first godmother gave the baby the gift of intelligence and fun. The second gave the gift of beauty and music. And the third godmother was about to give her a gift when a shadow fell over the room. A wicked wasp flew in. She was mad that she had not been invited to the party. "I put this baby under a spell," the wasp said, buzzed angrily. "She will be stung by a wasp and die before her 16th birthday." The wasp flew away laughing. The last butterfly godmother thought quickly before she gave her gift to the baby. "I cannot stop the wasp's spell," she said, "but if Bella is stung, she will not die. Instead, she will sleep for 100 years and will only be woken up by a kiss from a prince." The years passed and Bella grew. Everyone in the palace made sure that no wasp ever came near her. As her 16th birthday approached, the queen and king hoped that Bella might escape. the wasp's spell. But the day before her 16th birthday, Bella heard a buzzing sound outside. She went out to explore and saw a juicy apple. She did not see the wasp hiding behind it. As Bella reached out to take the apple, the wasp stung her, and she fell asleep. The king and queen were horrified. They carried the sleeping Bella back to her room. When the butterfly godmother saw how upset the king and queen were, they magically put everyone in the castle to sleep too. 100 years passed, and thorny bushes grew around the sleeping palace. One day, Prince Snuffling was passing through the forest when he spotted the palace by the thick vines. He cut his way through and went inside, where he found the sleeping princess. Prince Snuffling thought Bella was beautiful, and he gave her a kiss. She began to wake up. Then everyone else in the palace began to wake up as well. They were delighted to see Bella waking up. It was not long before another party was held in the palace. Bella and Prince Snuffling got married, and they lived happily ever after. The end. And that was called Sleeping Badger, and that was written by Charlotte Guillian. The next book I'm going to read is called The Boy Who Cried Sheep by Laura North. A young shepherd lived at the edge of a big forest full of wolves. Every day he walked through the forest with a girl who wore a little red hood. She was terrified of wolves. Little Red Riding Hood went to visit her granny. The boy went to look after his flock of prize-winning sheep. The boy trained his show-jumping sheep every day. Little Red Riding Hood laughed at the boy and his jumping sheep. One day, the boy went to play a trick on her, to pay her back for laughing at him. The boy crept up behind Little Red Riding Hood and pretended to be a wolf. "Roar!" he growled. "Help! Help!" screamed Red Riding Hood. A group of villagers raced over. "It was only a joke," said the shepherd boy. The villagers grumbled and walked away angry. A few days later, he did it again. "Growl!" the boy growled. This time, Little Red Riding Hood screamed even louder. "Help! Help!" The villagers ran over, huffing and puffing. "It's just a joke," the shepherd boy said. The villagers all looked very annoyed. A few days later, the boy saw a real wolf at the door of Granny's cottage. "Wolf! Wolf!" he shouted, but no one came. "Wolf! Wolf!" he shouted louder. Still, no one came. The boy ran over to the villagers. "Help! Help! There's a wolf! There's a wolf!" he shouted. "Stop playing tricks," the villagers said. The boy had cried wolf too many times. Now, no one believed him. He ran over to Granny's cottage. The wolf was already in Granny's bed. "What should I do?" he thought. Then he had a brilliant idea. "Sheep!" he cried at the top of his voice. Within seconds, the sheep came running. "Pyramid!" shouted the boy. The sheep jumped on each other's shoulders. The boy climbed up the sheep and onto the roof. "Sheep, follow me!" shouted the boy. He climbed inside the chimney. His sheep followed one by one. Inside the cottage, the wolf was licking his lips. "What big teeth you have, Granny," said Red Riding Hood. Suddenly, thud! The boy fell down the chimney, landed on the bedroom floor. The wolf looked up in surprise. Thump! Thump! Bah! A pile of sheep landed in the fireplace. "We're here to save you," said the boy. He turned to the sheep. "Sheep, attack!" he shouted. The sheep jumped at the wolf and sat on top of him. The boy and his sheep took the wolf to the villagers, who now believed his story. The shepherd boy had learned his lesson and never cried wolf again. But you can often hear him shout, "Sheep!" as he puts on a show for the villagers. The end. And that book was called The Boy Who Cried Sheep by Laura North. And that is all the books I'm going to read today. And again, the first book I read is called Little Red Riding Duck by Charlotte Guillian. Panderella, again by Charlotte Guillian. The Peanut Poodle by Charlotte Guillian. And Sleeping Badger by Charlotte Guillian. And the last one was The Boy Who Cried Sheep by Laura North. And these are all part of the Animal Fairy Tales, as well as the Tadpole Fairy Tale Twist. These are the books that you can find at the Farmington Public Library in our catalog. You can also go to our website at www.infoway.org for more event information. And thank you.
This has been Cuentos Hahne and Tales, presented by the Farmington Public Library and KSJE 90.9 FM.